Hey guys, it's Robert. In today's episode, I'm going to be mostly behind the camera with Andy on the business end of things, as he'll be sharing what it takes to service the Allison automatic transmission. Quick heads up, in this episode, the audio is going to be less than ideal. In fact, it's going to be really noisy and it might take some of you some time to get used to the noise. Apologies in advance. That noise is thanks to the cicadas living in the nearby trees.
All right, so we're going to do a service here, show you how to do a service on a Allison 1000 transmission. We're working on an 07 Chevy Silverado. It's got the Duramax diesel with the Allison 1000. We're going to show you how to get the pan off, change the filter inside, and then also change this additional filter here on the front. So we'll get our drain pan up here a little bit closer. And what I like to do on getting the pan bolts out, this has been cooled down, by the way. Recommend you let the vehicle cool down. Don't do the service when it's hot. I'm going to work from the back of the pan first, and the reason is those are going to be my last bolts that I'm going to remove. And all I'm going to do is loosen the three in the back. So I've loosened these three in the back, and what I'm going to do is run them back up lightly. Just something I do. The reason is, I'll show you when we get there. I'm going to work from the front next and loosen those bolts, work my way to the back. And with these having already been loosened, I don't have to break them loose again. And hopefully when we get to this point and we've got fluid running everywhere, I can run these out slowly now and slowly tip the front of the pan down. That's my plan. We want to try and keep from putting too much oil on the floor. Get most of them. Let me turn my gun back up. So working my way back, front to back here, I want to drop the front of the pan first. You can see there it is. We started to lose some of the fluid. That fluid level is going to be way above the pan rail, so we've got a lot of fluid that's got to come out of this thing. These hold a lot. Okay, so we're down to our last two bolts. We've got the front dropping down, and what we're going to try and do is slowly back these out, attempting to control how fast this thing drops down in the front. Get ready to want to come down quick now. Still a lot of fluid inside, so quite a mess to be made. Oh, there we go. Okay, one bolt left. Get a hold of this pan. Try and bring her down slow. like to do is tip the pan up here and try and get as much out as I can. And then bring it down. Okay, so here's our internal filter here that we're going to replace. That's not held in by any type of a bolt or clip or anything. It's simply held in by the grommet that seals it to the case or the pump itself. So what we're going to do is just try and get a screwdriver pry bar in here and lightly pry down. Stay away from anything that looks electrical, any of your solenoids or wiring harness, because we don't want to do any damage. So let's try by hand first, see if this filter will come down. These are usually fairly tight, but a little bit of wiggle. Now remember, we're gonna have more fluid here to deal with, so try not to be in a hurry. You can see how much is coming out. I slowly take her down. And that filter still got a lot in it. Get some of that out. And then what we were trying to be careful with was here, you've got a solenoid, you've got a pressure manifold switch over here, and then you've got some loose wiring here for some of the harness, if you will, internal harness. That's, if we came in with a screwdriver, we'd want to be real careful. In this case, we were able to just get her down by hand, which was nice. No worry about damaging anything inside. Next is, there is a seal or grommet fits around here that likes to stay in place up in the transmission. That we're going to need a screwdriver or a hook or a pick or something to grab a hold of, but we don't want to scratch the bore getting that out of there. We don't want to do any damage to the case. All right, so we're going to go in here, screwdriver against that grommet. We don't want to go too deep, like I said, we'll scratch a bore. Just enough to hopefully grab it, kind of just pop it down out of there. That's the guy we were wanting to get out of there. All right, so that's the seal we wanted to remove, or grommet, that sits down over the neck of that filter.
If this type of content is adding value, please let us know by hitting that like button. It does help the channel, and we do greatly appreciate it.
All right, quick pan inspection here. Most of your pans are always going to have a magnet in them. Hopefully trap some of the metal that's floating around in there. In this case, this has got the little flat magnet GM uses a lot, and it's got a little bit of junk on it there. If I run my finger across, not anything to be concerned about. What we're looking for is if there what I'd call any chunks, any larger pieces that would be sticking or hung on to the magnet itself. So inside the rest of the pan is absolutely clean. We've got just a little bit of debris down here, probably clutch material, but very, very clean. We're figuring this probably got about 25,000 miles on it, give or take, since the last service. That's exactly what we want to see. A little bit of metal on there is fine. All right, so just to cover all the bases, some people will probably ask, what about the drain plug? Some transmissions do have the option of a drain plug that we could have pulled out first and drained the fluid, maybe saved a little bit of mess. The problem I found with the GMs is getting them broken loose. For one thing, the area that the socket would fit over is not very deep, like a regular bolt. So the socket itself can't get a good bite. And I've tried to get these out before and not had real good luck. Usually the way I end up getting them broke loose, if you really want to fight it, is you've got to smack it with a very large hammer several times to shock it loose or get it broken loose. If it's been out before, it's probably going to be easier to get loose, but a lot of times I just skip over it for that reason. And what has happened is some of them, where it attaches to this nut inside, you smacking it too hard can break that nut loose inside there. So now you've turned this into a bigger project. So I opted just to drop the pan down, but we wanted to cover that just in case someone was curious about that. So, All right, next thing on the Allison is we want to change this spin-on filter. One of the few transmissions that uses it, but you definitely want to get that changed out. I think we had it broke loose enough for me to get it by hand. Basically, just like your oil filter on your engine. What this guy does is it filters for the, additionally, and on top of the one in the pan, for what's called the lube system or lubrication system. Definitely needs to be changed out same time that you're doing your pan filter there, or internal filter. A little bit of fluid off of that. One of the key points on this is not just simply taking it off and changing it. I want to show you something once we get this removed that many people are not aware of. All right, let's see if we get this off. All right. Okay, so what we're concerned with here, in addition to just change the filter, is this right here. And that is a magnet. And a lot of people may not be aware of that. And the reason is, I can get it out of there. Usually when you pull the filter down, your magnet's sitting right there. All right, so a lot of times, as I mentioned, the magnet's stuck to the filter. In this case, it was stuck up here. And what happens is somebody takes that filter down, they drain it, they throw it in the trash, they grab the new filter and put it up on there. New filters do not come with that magnet in place. So what you've got to do is reuse this. You take it out, you clean all the muck off of it, and you put it right back on here or on there and put your new filter in place. That's an absolute, got to have that back in there. That will affect the efficiency of the filter as well as the cooling system, lubrication system for the transmission. Let's talk filters. So our screw-on filter here, for what it's worth, I'm only going to use the factory or Allison filter on these. And the reason is experience. We did find at some of the shops I was working at, the aftermarket or no-name filters were giving us some problems. Okay, so what we did was got rid of any of the aftermarket stuff, possibly overseas, whatever, and I only use the Allison, or another good one is the Wix Gold. Those are always excellent filters. But on expensive trans like this, we don't want to shortcut and go with the cheap. And let's not forget our magnet on that screw-in filter. That's just going to sit right in the middle, right there. We'll thread that back on like a regular engine oil filter. Pan filter here. Different versions for different depths of pans. Early and late, they changed. So what we've got to do is make sure our filter matches. We don't want to just take it out of the box and throw it in there. So what we're looking for here is a height or a depth on filters. And if Robert can get a shot of that.
Oh yeah.
We've got a gap. So right off that tells me we got the wrong filter. This, I would say, is for a deeper pan. This one that he has here, the factory or the one that came out of there, is a shallow pan. Those should match, be right up against each other, and they do not. So we've got to get back to the parts house and get the correct filter.
Looking for parts, tools, and or supplies for your Allison transmission? Be sure and check out the resources section in the video description down below. After returning from the parts house, it was now on to some house cleaning. Normally a guy would clean an oil pan like this with the assistance of a water-based parts washer or a solvent tank. But elbow grease works good too.
Okay, so we got our correct filter here for the depth of the pan. take a little bit of this transmission fluid, just put it on that grommet. And I'm gonna put that up in there. Now what we're gonna end up having to do, because these are usually pretty tight, smack her a few times. That's fine right there. Like I said, no clip, no bolt. The little nubs on the bottom of the filter are supposed to rest against the pan itself. That helps to support it and keep it in place so it doesn't fall out. Now we'll get our small filter here. Same thing like we would do on engine. Want to lube up that O-ring in this case just a little bit. We don't want to put those on dry. Let's clean that off, make sure it's good. Thread that on there. Now, one thing I used to teach for many years is oil filter wrenches are for removal, not for installation. Even if you look on the side of the filter, they'll tell you it's hand tighten only. So that's all we're gonna do here is tighten that up by hand. I don't ever recommend using a filter wrench to install. It's just simply way too tight. Okay, we're ready to put our pan on. What we'll do is, I like to do a little wipe down on the pan rail. Get rid of any dirt, trans fluid. Okay. No. Yep. Set our pan up here. Just gonna run one bolt in just enough to keep her there. Okay, I like to use the electric impact to run them bolts up just for a time saving, but that is not a final torque. I turn the gun down to the lowest setting, just run them up. Like I said, a little faster that way. Now we'll finish that off with a torque wrench. Spec on this that I like to use with the rubber reusable gaskets, 90 to 100 inch-pounds. So we'll find a torque wrench, go over those. Spin-on's tight. We'll have the bottom buttoned up. We'll set her down, fill her with fluid. Did I bring a torque wrench the last time, or do you remember? That's too long ago.
Snap-on one. If it wasn't already, it's getting comical now.
All right, we got one more toolbox. Search and rescue. That's meant to tow you. Those are wrenches. I got wrenches covered really, really well. Wait a minute. There, well. Wow. Now there, it's an old torque wrench. Hopefully that's not the one we're using, but that is an old inch-pound torque indicator. Probably older than I am. All right, hopefully we can find something. There's a big half-inch drive torque wrench. It'd been faster to drive home. Obviously no delicate precision work has been done around here.
Needless to say, we were unable to find a suitable torque wrench. rolling.
Okay, we've got the engine shut off just because of noise, but I wanted to go over reading this dipstick on this and showing Julian here a little bit about it. When we stab this stick in there, that's all we need is just a momentary stab in there, okay? Now we see how far the fluid's come back up since it's shut off. But what we were doing was trying to get our fluid level in the cold crosshatch mark. And part of the lesson I was trying to show him was, one thing is the stick is long, which means the tube is long, which means it's going to take a while for the transmission fluid to drain down in there. So don't be in a hurry checking fluid level. How many times I've seen guys do this. They put some fluid in, yank the funnel, put the stick in. It looks hot, looks good to me. And then you go road test it and come back, it's settled. Now it's further down on the stick. And the other thing too is I tell people, you're not reading one side of the stick, you're reading both sides. So if you've got fluid up to here on this side, it better be consistent on the back side. Because when that fluid's draining down, a lot of times what happens is it reads high on one side, but a little low on the other side. So you're looking for even amount, both sides of the stick. That's a true reading. We've got ours filled to top side of the cold at this point because obviously the engine and the truck are cold. And once it's warmed up, it should expand and bring us up into the hot crosshatch. Anywhere in here is good. So it'll expand that much from there to there easily, especially on a hot day. So this one is ready for a road test and final fluid level check. And it's good to go until the next transmission service.
Unfortunately, we were running behind schedule and we didn't have time to film both the road test and the final fluid level check. If you don't already know, conducting a road test is super important. It's gonna bring the engine and the transmission up to temp. Even more important, that ATF inside of the transmission, it needs to be brought up to temp. That ATF is actually affected by temperature, and as the ATF heats up, it'll actually grow or expand, which results in a raised fluid level. So once again, Andy did all that stuff, but we just didn't have time to document any of it. Speaking of the fluid, the Allison wound up consuming roughly 10 quarts of ATF in order to conduct this transmission service. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. If you're new here to the channel and you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell too, so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. As always, thank you so much for your viewership. Your support means more than you know. Alrighty, guys, we'll catch you in another episode real soon.